So much for the tangible. Thus far we've spent our time on the places in a text that can more or less be measured. They leave traces in the work that a reader can point to and say, there, that's a character narrator because of the viewpoint, or that character attacking his father's killer is acting out a revenge plot. Things like that. Of the categories we've discussed in these lessons, the plot, the narrator, the characters, the story world, and the text, well, all those story elements are evident in the book for anyone to see, more or less. The subtext, on the other hand, is not nearly as visible. But that doesn't mean it's not important. If I ask the question, what does Jane Eyre mean? I'd likely get a different response from every reader. Is it a story about love, loyalty, honesty, sex, marriage, friendship, all those things? If I reframe that question to where does the meaning in Jane Eyre lie, I'd get still more diverse answers. At the level of the word, sentence, chapter, or perhaps at the level of human psychology? Or would it be at the level of the individual reader's psychology? Surely Jane Eyre's meaning lies in all those places, and surely there's meaning that readers and literary scholars have yet to uncover. Jane Eyre in 2020 is likely to reveal things about the human story that Bronte's readership never could have foreseen in 1966, let alone 1866. I guess what I'm trying to say is that meaning is a very tricky thing to get hold of and teach in the way we've been trying to get hold of the more tangible elements of written fiction. I started out with the model of a painting class and the goal of making the abstract tools of fiction writing more concrete, to turn syntax and story structure into brushes, spatulas, and oil paints. Unfortunately, on this front, I'm going to fall a little short. Meaning is not a tangible skill, and no amount of study or drilling can predict what kind of meaning a reader will infer from your stories. This section will be slight in its scope for a couple reasons. The first we've just mentioned. There aren't a lot of hard skills between the lines. The second is that this territory isn't just well-trod, it's been positively trampled into oblivion. This is the domain of almost every English class you've ever taken. What does the green light mean to Gatsby? Or the doctor's eyes? Ooh, the eyes must be a statement about the evils of capitalism. Everybody nod now as if that's profound and we can pretend we're in a college literature seminar. Yes, very insightful, Roe. You must be a real deep thinker. Okay, I kid a little. Perhaps that's my personal bias showing through. I did learn a lot about literature from taking literature classes, but I'm sure you won't be too shocked to hear that I found them very frustrating at times. Apart from a pair of narrative theory courses and a linguistics class or two, I spent almost the entirety of my formal education in literature classes firmly in this sixth subtextual, intangible, nebulous, and largely inaccessible domain. You probably guessed that I feel far more comfortable with at least one foot on the solid earth. So why is every English class about all this intangible stuff then? That answer may go all the way back to our discussion of the Kims and Davids, the intuitive versus the empirical approach to literature. I'm sure you won't be too shocked to hear that most English teachers are intuitive people. Truth to many of my English professors seemed largely to be about what they could make a convincing rhetorical argument for, regardless of whether there was any actual real-world truth undergirding it. And then there's the issue of ideology, no small matter in the humanities these days, especially with literature. Almost all my English professors who taught literature sheerly because of their love of literature have now retired. The rest, by my reckoning, are all at least half an activist, meaning they care more about political ideology than literature, and the literature is merely the vehicle they use to advance their activism. And syntax and story structure aren't exactly sexy or useful ways to bolster a social or political cause. Lastly, the largest reason I suspect most English classes fail to stray very far from this sixth domain is that it's low-hanging fruit. Any old mediocrity can lead a discussion on the symbolism of the green light or the doctor's eyes. Learning syntax, linguistics, and narrative theory are all difficult tasks in their own right. Teaching them to a room full of sophomores in a literature class is even harder. It takes a special teacher to get a 19-year-old truly excited about the intricacies of literature, and most teachers are average, by definition. Roll all those reasons into a big ball and cement it with a healthy coating of postmodern cynicism, and you're likely to continue to get more of the same out of a formal literary education for the foreseeable future. If you're looking to learn about the beauty and nuance of literature, you probably won't find it at a university these days. Perhaps you never could. Thankfully, you'll always find beauty and nuance in the books themselves, though. Anyway, this ultimate section in these lessons is about the subtext. It's about the stuff we can only infer, which means things are about to get subjective. But don't despair. Again, I'm going to keep things focused on the task at hand. What tools can we use to learn here? We'll start by focusing on ways we can think about the subtext on the level of the page. Then we'll shift focus to deal with things like metaphor, theme, and meaning, from the small scale to the large. And the best thing about the subjective is that you can't be that wrong about anything here. As Dr. House is so fond of saying, quite rightly, none of this means anything anyway. So why do we find stories so meaningful then? Well, that's a question above Ro's pay grade. I'm still grappling with that damn green light.